everyone, it's Desiree, and we are here with Spellbinders and the card kit for the month of May. Let's look at what we will get in our kit. You'll get the pamphlet that tells you what's in your kit, some inspiration as always, cardstock. You'll get a piece of gold mirror and the colors that you see here, from neutrals to beautiful bright colors. Your 10 envelopes, card bases that are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and they are side folding with envelopes, double-sided tape, a square of double-sided foam squares, some really bright pink iridescent sequins, a 6x6 paper pad with 2 sheets of each pattern. Now remember, this is a paper pad, so I believe this is just under 65 pounds. But this is great for layering. So if you've seen all my videos, you know I just keep saying that. But there is a wide range of patterns in here, from small details to animal images to other types of designs. You're going to get a package of these circled chipboard letters, these gold puffy stickers for sentiments, more chipboard stickers, and of course my favorite, the die cuts. I love these die cuts. You can do so much with these and make so many more cards than just the 10 card bases that they provide. As always, you get a stamp set, a beautiful floral image with some sentiments, and you will get a die set so that you can make your own koala. Now in this, I will not be making the koala, but I will be using the stamp set. Let's get started into card 1. As always, I use the double-sided tape in the kit to put down my papers, my pattern papers, when I layer them. When I work with this card kit, I love to collage with this card kit. It's just my take on this type of card kit. I just love collaging. I love adding layers and textures, but you can also keep it simple. So here I've simply taken 2 pieces of the pattern paper. I cut one to be 4 by 5 1/4, and another one I just cut a strip. I do not measure, so I am sorry. I just don't measure. I know it makes people frustrated. I see it in the comments. I just don't measure. Have fun with playing with your shapes and your cuts. I put that towards the bottom, and I took the puffy stickers. I used the hello with some gold hearts, and I just added the sentiment right along the line of the pattern paper, and I have the hearts coming up in a diagonal line. For the next card, there is a koala because it was a die cut image. And I've taken another piece of the pattern paper. I cut that to 4 and 5 1/4. That's really the only one that I know of the measurement. And then I took another piece of pattern paper and just cut that down. And I'm going to layer that down in the bottom right-hand corner. Excuse me. I'm going to place that down onto my card base, and I'm going to put the koala in. And this is where I will use my glue. Now you can certainly continue to use the double-sided tape. I just find it easier to use my liquid adhesive. I have time to wiggle it and move it and place it exactly where I want that to go. I'm going to use some of my leftover foam squares that I haven't used from previous kits, and I like to cut these up because we can use the entire square after we use the foam squares from the center. Propped up the sentiment. Here I'm going to tear a piece of the pattern paper just to give it some interest. Doesn't always have to be a straight line when it comes to our pattern papers and when we layer. I'm going to place down my main panel first, and then I'm going to place my strip across that. Now I have the tape on that, but that's okay. I'm going to keep that up in the air, trim off the sides. I didn't want that to go from side to side on my card base. I'm going to trim away the excess and then place that down onto my card base. I used the pattern itself, since it was a plaid print, to make that straight. Again, don't like to measure, and I don't like to use a ruler. I have to say I used a ruler and wow, I get hung up on this sentiment. So I spelled out thanks with my gold chipboard letters here, and we're going to be here for a little bit. So I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's having a good day with creating and being creative there. So I did pull in my T ruler and I pushed up on it thinking, okay, everything's going to be straight. I am trying to get these to be even on the front of this card, but it just keeps getting itself worse. I finally stop and say, okay, I press down because they are adhesive. And then I'm going to place the kangaroo with florals on top. Yeah, it's just, you know, it was just, I should have just put them all close together and put it to one side. Here's our pattern paper, again, using the bright floral. Now remember, a kit, everything is meant to go together, whether they're die cut pieces, whether they're pattern papers. So since everything's coming from this kit, it will all match. Now the floral die cut image that I'm using is very close to the background. To break that up, I just grabbed a more solid piece of the pattern paper with a very faint design on that, and that's where I'm going to place my floral. The floral will stand out and will not get lost within that pattern paper. So that's what you can do with your papers. Again, that paper pad, every piece will work together. Even though you don't think it will. It will. It's designed that way. So if you have a really busy die cut and a really busy piece of pattern paper, just put a more solid looking, or you can always cut a piece from the solid cardstock and put that behind your die cut piece. It's a way for it to be framed, and it'll separate it from your pattern paper so that the eye will be drawn right to them. Again, starting out with my background layer, and then I grabbed the adorable koalas for the background. I'm using one of the chipboard sticker or die cuts, and I'm using the camera down in the bottom. I'm going to place a bird on top of that. These are beautiful watercolor images that are throughout these throughout the images. I'm going to place a butterfly down above the bird and a smaller one on the left hand side, and then I'm going to come in with some foam squares, just cut them down, and I'm going to put them underneath the leaves so that they will remain to hold their dimension. I love to add dimension to the cards, whether that's layering or whether that's just using a lot of dimensional tape. You can also use layers of scrap cardstock behind them if you don't have any foam squares. So that's always a way to add dimension to your cards. You don't need to have everything. For this one here, I kind of did the same thing. Well, I do the same thing in all of them. I have my background, and then I have another piece that's coming up. So my background looks really busy. We've got some medium-sized flowers going on in that background. So then I chose the lattice type pattern paper. It's got a nice white background to it with some gray, excuse me, going across that. And I grabbed all of the florals that were in bottles. I have the one underneath the glass sitting in the background, and I'm going to place the one in the bottles along the front. So it's going to look like it's an arrangement when it comes to these images. For this last one that I'm going to be placing on my card front, it's going to be propped up using those foam squares. And again, to make it look like it's more towards the front. I'm going to add my sentiment off to the side, and there's that card. So here we're going to do something a little bit different with the die cuts. Now, what's great, when it comes to the die cut pack, you get 2 of every image. So I always grab all of the florals. So they always get grouped together, and I always lay out my card bases, and then I just put, start throwing down the different pattern papers and then the die cuts on top and all of the embellishments that I want to put there before I start putting my cards together. So I grabbed these two frames, and what I'm going to do is put a layer of foam squares in between. So while they're going to be right on top of each other, it's going to create dimension and a different type of dimension, because when you look at this on the side, you're going to see the frame underneath it. I've been seeing some cards where they do that. They have the same image and they prop them up using foam squares in between, so that when you look in between it or off to the side, you're still seeing that image. I'm fiddling around here with the greens. These look like eucalyptus leaves in a nice watercolor, and I'm just placing those. I'm going to put a dab of glue in a couple of places, and I'm going to have those in the background of this dimensional frame that we have. And yes, they are going to come out from underneath it. And then the rest of the florals, I'm going to set that off to one side and layer them in between these layers. Again, just to give it that interest, to create this focal point, even though I've got florals on the background of my pattern paper. It's okay. That frame is breaking them away from that pattern paper so that they don't get lost in there, because it's similar colors. I am adding a little bit more yellow to help those flowers pop off that corner. And we're going to do that both with the double-sided foam squares and with some liquid adhesive. So just creating your own bouquet when it comes to the arrangement. And it's okay if you used two of the same florals. You would just be able to put something in between them just to break them up. The die cuts had a tag, so I'm going to be building off of that tag. I'm going to use a strip of a pattern paper onto my base panel. My base panel is close to the color of the tag, but it is a lighter tone because it has more white in it. But the tag will sit more so on top of the eucalyptus leaves to help it stand out. I'm going to add some stamps coming down along with the envelope and the florals coming out, and then just a few more embellishments coming out of the side. And then I'm actually going to use two of the same sentiment just to give it a little bit more stability and a little bit of dimension. For the next one, you can see when I put my cards together, they have a theme. They're either all florals, or it's all travel, or it's all watercolor. There's always something that's similar, even though I'm collaging. So my backdrop panel here looks like, the world map. So I grabbed items that matched that. So world map, we think of travel, we think of photos, tickets, and stuff like that. One of the things that was in the chipboard pieces was a film strip of different locations. So I have that sitting along the bottom. I have a notepad piece that I cut down from the paper so that we can write our notes. I have a butterfly. I have a bird stamp, and then some more butterflies. So it kind of ties that whole pattern paper and theme together just a little bit. And then of course the sentiment says smile, so in case we're taking pictures and stuff like that. I get a lot of questions, how do I know how to put these pieces together? So that's another way. It's a theme. Everything's just matching, and they go along with each other when it comes to these cards. So here I am using that stamp. I loved this marble looking watercolor paper, And I'm going to choose my sentiment as well and place that down. So I loved this image. It was really pretty, but I wanted it to be in like a shadow, but it's going to be bold. I'm using my VersaFine black ink to stamp this, both the sentiment and the floral image at once. And then I'm going to come in with my clear embossing powder. I used a very light hand when I was pushing down on the stamp. So that's why I did stamp it 3 times, because there were some areas that I was missing. I'm going to heat up my heat tool, and then I start in the back. I come to the front and melt all of the powder. And it did warp a little bit. Again, this is a lighter paper. It's not a cardstock. It's not a heavyweight cardstock. So there is some warping. So with the way that I've placed my tape, you know, it's going to go down flat onto my card base. Now, this looks great just the way that it is. I'm going to add a similar die cut piece from the stamp set and place that down onto the bottom right-hand corner. So we have this huge focal point, and then we have the illusion of other flowers coming in the back of it into the background. I'm going to trim the edges from around the card base, and then I'm going to place these wonderfully bright sequins. So they are a bright pink, but they have a great iridescent look to them. So I hope you enjoyed all of the cards that we made today, featuring the Spellbinders Card Kit of the month, called Koala Smiles for May. As always, I will have all of the links to Spellbinders. So if you want to check out all of their clubs, they have so many available and so many deals if you match some together. A link to their shop in general, and also to their blog, because they have a wonderful gallery for even more inspiration, so that when you're ready to create your cards. If you have any questions, make sure you leave those down below, and I will make sure I get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for taking the time, stopping by, and watching my video. Again, as always, I hope you did enjoy it. If you haven't yet, I'd love for you to subscribe, so make sure you hit that button. Make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you like it, maybe somebody else would like it, and that helps YouTube to push that video out there. Enjoy your process. Have fun creating. You are creating art, so be proud of that. But always remember what's most important. Always be creative.